a pleasure to invite you here this evening, to welcome you here this evening, in fact. And our programme is part of a much wider citywide artistic programme that is supported by Liverpool City Council's City Fund. And I think it's fair to say that Liverpool Black History Month this year is bigger than it's ever been, with Black creativity showcased across all of the art forms. And one highlight for us and within our programme is our Young Writers Takeover of Tate Liverpool. We're led by Blue Saint, recording artist, spoken word artist. Young people have the opportunity to view the amazing collection of Black art at Tate, and to give their thoughts through discussion, through writing, through spoken word, and through their own visual art. And that residency runs until the 6th of November. So if you're young, if you're a young person, please do sign up for that. And during the course of the event, we'll pop the link to that in the event. You'd be and all young people are very, very welcome. It sounds fantastic. I wish I was young enough to get in myself. But on with the show this evening, on with tonight's event. And our very special guest is Mayor Joanne Anderson. And we are absolutely delighted to have her with us tonight, because Joanne has been a valued supporter and a very close friend of Writing on the Wall for many years. She's even hosted festival events herself and did a great In Conversation last year with Kevin Maxwell. And all of us at WOW are very proud of her monumental achievements, not only in becoming the city and the UK's first female Black elected mayor, but in the work that she's doing in that role. And I've called tonight, Be Who You Can't See. And I know the phrase is normally you can't be who you can't see, but actually Joanne did become who she couldn't see. And this event is really about, aimed at young people. Everybody's welcome, you're all welcome in the Zoom room tonight, but we're really trying to get that message across to young people to have the confidence that, you know, even if they don't see who they want to be, they do have a chance, because Joanne has clearly achieved despite a lot of odds. But I'm not going to say much more about Joanne, because in conversation with Mayor Joanne tonight, we welcome for the very first time to a WOW Festival event, Elliot Kingsley. And Elliot is an artist, practitioner, teacher and activist from Birkenhead. He's based in Liverpool. And over the past 18 months, he's been working very closely with arts organisations across Merseyside, focusing on racial disparity in the industry. And Elliot also works very closely with independent businesses across the Northwest, especially within the hospitality sector. So before I hand you over to Elliot, I'm going to just run through the Zoom etiquette, if you like. It's fabulous to have you here all in the Zoom room. If you decide to switch your camera on or leave it off, it's entirely up to you. But it is nice to see your faces, but again, the choice is yours. And we will be releasing this video on social media. So if you are a little bit shy or don't want your face on social media, I would suggest leave your cameras off. But it is nice for us to see you. Later on in the event, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. So if you could use the reactions button at the bottom and raise your hand, your virtual hand that is, you can ask your question direct to Joanne. If you don't want to do that, you can put it in the chat function that you'll also find at the bottom of your screen. And for the kind of best viewing experience, we say put your view into gallery view, which you'll find at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Okay, so that's the Zoom housekeeping done. And without further ado, I would like to welcome tonight Elliot Kingsley and Mayor Joanne Anderson. Give them a big virtual welcome, please.
What a wonderful introduction. Thank you very much. And thank you again to everyone that's participating today. Tonight, I have the absolute honour of speaking to the current Mayor of Liverpool, Joanne Anderson. How are you doing? Miss Anderson won the election on behalf of Labour in May earlier this year and has become a landmark figure in British politics and social history. The lady from Liverpool that thought she'd never amount to much, and that's your quote, not mine, is the city...
Yeah, not lady, I would never call myself that.
Is our city's first female mayor, as mentioned before, and also the UK's first black female mayor. Joanne, first of all, how are you? You okay?
I'm okay, Alice. I'm very much look forward to meeting you tonight. And thanks, Mads, for the intro. So I'm really excited to be here. I've had a lot of requests for Black History Month, so I was delighted that I've been able to do this event so I could reach out to everyone, because I just couldn't get to many places that had requested me to visit them.
Yeah, as I'm sure you understand, and I understand, and many of the participants today understand, this month, as important as it is, it also can be very taxing for a lot of people, and there are lots of requests for figures such as yourself to these events. So thank you for taking the time to do this, really. Just to go through the structure of today, what I'd like to do is make it nice and relaxed, nice and calm. As Madeline mentioned before, there's plenty of opportunities for questions, so pop them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll get to those a little bit later. For now, I'd just like to start a little bit with about yourself, really. I've called this section Humble Beginnings. So I think, like myself, you come from a working class background. Growing up, what was your family surroundings, your family background like?
When you say humble, I can't really describe it as that. Even though from a really poor area, we lived in a block of flats in Netherley. My mum was a single parent, but my mum was one of 10 and my dad was one of 7. I was the first grandchild on my dad's side, and whilst I've got about 25 cousins on my mum's side, I was the first black grandchild, even though I've got other black cousins. So I was absolutely spoilt rotten, to be fair. So when I say humble, we didn't have much in way of money, but, I always had sweets. I always had people buying me presents. I was always getting picked up, dropped off, looked at. I had a bed in every house, tea in everyone's house. So I was really, really very spoilt. And, having 35 cousins, I think, at the last time I counted, whilst I was an only child with my mum, I've got great memories of, just being with my family and having loads of people around me all the time. Although I'm not a big fan of that. I think it's probably because I am from a big family. I do really like my own company. But pretty spoilt growing up, despite the poverty.
I didn't realise that we actually had that in common. I'm the same. I'm from a very big family based in Birkenhead. Again, more cousins than I think anyone could count, really. And I think I'm also the first member of our family to be black as well. Growing up then, who, if you could name just one person, and it can be a bit hard sometimes, who would you name as your biggest inspiration?
It sounds quite cheesy, but it is my mum. My mum went to school with Maria O'Reilly and Pat Harvey and were friends. For those people who know them, they're very, they're all very strong community activists. And my mum ran a Citizens Advice Bureau on our estate, so everyone went to my mum with a problem and she solved everyone's problem. So I've come from a household where the whole community looked up to my mum and she helped them with anything. And massive heart, big heart on her. And then I had my aunties, my mum, the 7 girls in my mum's family out of the 10. So my mum and her sisters, my aunties, have been a great inspiration to me.
Well, so a lot of female strength then in your family.
Yeah.
And obviously we're going to talk a lot more about your incredible career as we know it today. What was your very, very first job that you can remember?
So it was probably babysitting, but I probably never got paid for that. But my aunties all had mobile shops and ice cream shops. So I worked on the van. Anyone from a council estate will remember a van where instead of a corner shop. And from 13, I was working Saturday and Sunday and then working every night after school. I stopped actually going to school because I suppose I had loads of money. But I worked constantly from about 13.
And also going back to that earlier quote about feeling that you never amount to much. I know that you grew up in the Thatcher administration. How was that as a Black woman?
So I think a lot of people can relate to it. You know, if I didn't end up on drugs, pregnant, or married to a gangster, or, you know, with a gangster, I was, you know, that was the benchmark. I was winning. So literally the school had no aspiration for me. My mum did, but didn't really know how to, you know, make me go to school. So when I talk about being bottom of the pile, I kind of regret that I've put that out there sometimes, because it's been quoted over and over again. But in society, there was a hierarchy at that time, and Black women were just at the bottom. And, you know, I felt that at that time. You know, I think probably there's certain groups who know exactly what I feel like in today's society, what I felt then. But yeah, you know, there was a song out at the time by UB40, I Am a 1 in 10, about being a sort of statistic, a number in the dole, you know, high unemployment, you know, you felt nothing but a number really. And you didn't, every message that come out from national government was, you know, whether it was blaming single parents, whether it was blaming Liverpool, whether it was blaming you because you were poor or Black, you just received constant messages that you weren't up to much.
Yeah. I mean, I personally feel like I see that still a lot today. I know you were saying that it felt like that, but I think although there have been changes, it can still feel, especially towards Black females, I feel like that's still very similar today and echoes today. Saying that though, do you think that Liverpool culturally is heading in the right direction, is making enough progress?
So, you know, appointing its first woman, you know, let alone being a Black woman, is a step in the right direction, isn't it? And the fact that I'm a Black woman is a step in the right direction. But it's not the be all and end all, having one Black mayor, you know, representation through our organisations in terms of leadership, Black people into jobs. But, you know, you still can go to Liverpool and think there's no Black people here. You know, you don't point someone to Lodge Lane, they might never see a Black person in the city centre. And I think that's heartbreaking, actually. You know, during the summer, I've seen a lot of people who, because it was staycation, wasn't it, in Britain, you can tell when Black people are from out of town, whether from Birmingham or London. So we're seeing a lot more Black people, but as it's coming back to winter now, I still don't see Black people in the city centre very often. Or if you do, you know them, because, you know, it's that rare that you see that diversity. So, you know, I'll never stop campaigning for equality until I see better representation. We've still got the gap in terms of employment that we've always had. You know, we've still got, you know, the majority of Black people living in the most disadvantaged areas, going to the worst schools, those sorts of things. So whilst, you know, there can be achievements and we should celebrate them, you know, you know, we should celebrate progress. We've still got a long way to go.
Yeah. I completely agree, actually. And to just sort of go back a little bit on that point, would you be comfortable talking about some of maybe the barriers that you've had to face in personally or in your career to get to the point that you're at today?
I had a really great job in the civil service a few years ago, really well paid. I was the community engagement lead, policy lead for the Crown Prosecution Service, working on hate crime and violence against women and girls. And I had a white work and clearly got in my way a lot. You know, it was the microaggressions, kinds of daily microaggressions that his opinion was that I had all kinds of favours because I was a Black woman, that, you know, the barriers were removed from me and they weren't removed from him. Now, I love that we have in Liverpool, we're very diverse in our communities and we see discrimination. I've received just as much discrimination for being Scouse as I have a woman as for being Black. I think, you know, as working class people in Liverpool, we understand what it feels like to be stereotyped and discriminated against. So he thought I had the pathway clear for me, and actually he was my manager who was a barrier in my way. So the worst thing that upsets me the most, I think, because it's very really direct and in your face discrimination, is the microaggressions, the small things on a daily basis. Getting followed around the Tesco just winds me up. because it doesn't matter how I'm dressed. It doesn't matter if I'm dressed, whether I look like I'm going on the rob or I'm dressed like I'm doing the most professional thing ever. I still get followed around shops by security guards. And, it's weird being the mayor now. I'm not about to go to Tesco robbing bacon on a Saturday, am I? And it's just, I still get followed around. And I hate that. So it's the smaller things that really get to me, rather than the bigger ones.
Yeah, I think I personally really struggled with that as a teenager, as myself, especially looking at the diversity from the Wirral compared to Liverpool is even lower, far lower. Talking a hundredth of the diversity sort of figures of Liverpool, and yeah, I think that was for a young person. Even now, as you said, it's something that is one of the hardest things to tackle, and you obviously have. What I'd love to know, I think, is if you could go back now and give yourself one piece of advice at the ages of 16, 18, 21, those sort of crucial ages. Is there anything in particular that you think I'd love to tell myself? Nothing
to do with equality or race or anything like that. I'd tell myself to drink less when I was 16. I'd perhaps travel more when I was 18. I worked in London. I could have gone across Europe, but I split up with my boyfriend. I should have gone anyway. I should have gone by myself. So, to be more adventurous when I was 18, and 21, definitely save. I haven't been good on money management. I wish I'd have saved in a long-term way when I was 21.
Some brilliant advice. I should take some of that on board. So what I'd like to do now is just to continue to getting to know you a bit better. I've got some questions from social media. I had a little tweet and a post on Instagram just letting people know that I was involved with this event today. And most of the questions that have come in are just about you. People want to know about you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you these questions. It's a series of, I think, about 10 questions. And I want you to answer the questions as quick as possible. No thought in it, just straight answer, okay? Okay, so bap, bomb, or bun?
I think it's bap.
Yeah, okay. Do you go to the cinema or do you go to the pictures?
Pictures.
Would you rather read a book or watch a film?
Book, but sometimes films do outdo the book.
Yeah. Are you a summer person or a winter person?
Winter. Do you like a winter wardrobe?
Yeah. Is it dinner or tea for you?
Sorry?
Is it dinner or tea?
Me dinner, I think. Yeah, me dinner. Sorry, I'm going more Scouse, so I'm getting older.
That's brilliant. Or slippers?
Slippers, definitely.
Night in or night out? I think you've already answered.
Night in.
EastEnders or Corrie?
Oh, I don't watch either of them anymore. I've watched them. Yeah, I just got miserable watching EastEnders. I just get so depressed from it. I just stopped watching it.
I'm these days. Who wins in a fight? A Million Lions or the Sun? It's a bit outfield, that one. I don't really understand.
Sun, I reckon.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you like your eggs in the morning?
Well done.
Yeah? And last one, red or a blue?
Purple.
So, I found this quote from yourself, and I actually really wanted to pry into this and what this sort of meant to you, because I've tried to pick it apart for the past few days. Your quote is saying, and correct me if any of this is wrong, we are a proud footballing city with a rich historic affiliation for the sport. Mix blue with red and you get purple. What does that mean?
So there's a City of Liverpool Football Club that is set up as a community business to try and help support people who want to be football fans, because it's too expensive to take your kids to the match anymore. So, to get a season ticket and take your kid, it'd be a fortune. Liverpool and Everton are quite a rivalry. So City of Liverpool Football Club's for everyone. They're a community business. They do really good charity work. They were great during COVID. They do Afghan refugee, recently they've done a campaign for that. They do they welcome immigrants by doing football tournaments. They have, is it walking football, I believe is quite brutal. So they're inclusive, they engage, they're a community business. I'm all for community ownership. And they've mixed the two teams, the red and the blue, to get purple, and they're called the Perps. And yeah, we're obsessed. And I've met the conductor, the new conductor at the Philharmonic recently, and he said to me, I keep seeing these purple bins everywhere as ornament. What does it mean? I mean, how do you explain it? Or like territorial kinds of affection for our purple bin. And someone says they're from Liverpool, but they haven't got a purple bin. Like, you're not from Liverpool. I think it's quite funny. So anyone who knows me, I'm a really big fan of community business, community-owned businesses, communities developing themselves and helping other people. So the Perps also represents everything I'm passionate about. And I did get to my first game last week, and I actually really enjoyed it, even though I'm not a big football fan, because the lower down the league, the much more work goes into it, isn't it? I'd only seen Premier games, and I just thought that them fellas grafted, so I was very impressed.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going to see a play that's on at the Royal Court at the moment called Home Baked, which is about the bakery right by Anfield. And it was a beautiful story, and actually just getting to know that business better and engaging with that business. The amount of work that goes into those community-led systems, whether it's sports, whether it's a bakery, whether it's an arts organisation, I think it can be easy to forget how much hard work goes in just to make those things work on a day-to-day basis. But then you also tend to get the amount of loyalty from those surrounding areas because of how intrinsic and how important they are, whether it's the Perps or whether it's the best Scouse pie in Liverpool. Yeah, and that's also a brilliant point as well. I've never thought about the purple bin relation as well, with a city that's between blue and red.
We're obsessed with that.
What I'd like to do now is just have a little chat about sort of what you're doing now. For myself as a young person and other young people, I think politics can feel very daunting, can feel a little bit ostracizing. However, you as a figure are incredibly inviting and make it feel accessible. So I'm going to ask some questions. One of them's come from my younger sister. She's 12. And she asked, what is politics?
So I suppose it's a system of how we make decisions that affect us. And so people say I'm not political, but every decision, where you live, what food you have in your fridge, everything's politics for me. So I think, when someone says what is politics, it's choosing your leaders, it's choosing those people to represent you. So when I go into schools, I try to explain politics. I can explain it much better around football. As I said, I'm not a big football fan, but it's like picking your team and choosing who your manager is, or choosing your prefect in school, or choosing who your head girl is, or your head boy. So I think it's about choice politics.
Okay, well, in that then, and I know you've said that you're not the biggest football fan, but I will stick with football for this analogy. If you've got your head coaches, you've got your strikers, your defenders, could you explain a little bit more about the certain roles that come across in day-to-day life in British politics, like what's an MP, for yourself, what's a councillor? Could you explain those a little bit more?
Not in football terms, I can't. I don't know.
No, but I mean,
I don't know enough about the football positions, to be fair. Yeah,
know what they are.
I can. So, your local councillor is the person in your local community. So, if you think of where you live as an area, whether that's Croxteth, whether that's Toxteth and means around then, Dingle, wherever your area is, you're picking someone who's going to advocate for what you need in your community. And then we make decisions as, a group of councillors. So councillors across the whole city, of which there's 90. We have 30 wards in Liverpool, 3 councillors in each ward. We all sit together in the town hall, pre-COVID, and we make decisions and make choices that affect the city, and that's local government. And I'm the leader of our local government body in the city. Now, MPs, our city split up into 5 different areas for the MPs, and we each vote a person who's going to represent us, but in London, in Whitehall, at national government. And that's the difference between MPs. So an MP will deal with issues around national issues like immigration, whereas local governments will deal with things like your bins and your council tax and what school you go to. But your MP deals with national issues, you know, so your NHS and your immigration and things like that.
So if I could just, and again, tell me if I'm doing this justice, make a sort of a comparison. An MP would perhaps speak on behalf of what Liverpool feels like towards certain issues in the national sort of agenda, whereas your job is to focus on just on what's happening in Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I could have a you know, national government does affect us as well, but there's a role I have to play in national government, but not like the MPs. That's their day-to-day job. Mm-hmm. So I will meet someone from national government, for example, to perhaps make a case for Liverpool of why national government needs to listen to us. MPs would help me with that, or we would give MPs information to say, please take that to national government. So we do work together in the same party, but you know, your local MP doesn't work for us as local government, they work for national government.
I was very lucky to have a phone call off an ex-student today as well, who wanted to ask a question at 10 years old. And I think we can forgive their abrasiveness. They asked, what do you do? And I think what I'm going to do is elaborate on that a bit more and just ask what your day-to-day sort of works out like.
It's just wild. It's so diverse from one day to the next. So I've been interviewing today for a head of adult social care, and then I was on a leaders meeting across the region with the other leaders, talking about issues that affect us across the region. Then I had to do a comms piece, sitting on the Strand, freezing cold with a video pointing at my face, saying how, knowing I'm going to get a load of stick from this, but saying how great the Strand looks now. And it does look great, but that'll go up on social media where people will complain and gripe and moan that, you know, the Strand's been difficult for months, and it has. So apologising to people. And then I had an early door today, which is very unusual because I was coming home because I was going to have the Zoom with yourselves. But most days, from the minute I get in, from the minute I leave, I have back-to-back meetings, and usually about 12 hours a day. So it's yesterday we had the commissioners, and then I met with someone who talked about sustainable development goals, and then I met with one of my cabinet. So every day is just very, very different.
So yeah, everything's completely different every day. There isn't a set structure, I guess. Another question that I received is, how does the mayoral election work?
The next one coming up, you mean?
Yeah, just in general, how do they work for young people who want to get involved in that process?
So we have elections, we have local elections, we have national elections. Ours has just been changed because of the Cowler investigation and the commissioners in Liverpool to all out elections in 2023. We didn't used to do it that way. We used to do a third. We used to, if you signed up for an election, it was just one of the councillors in that ward. You know, you have 3 councillors in every ward, but we're all out in 2023. We've currently got a by-election. 2 people have sadly died recently, as well as 1 councillor has left. So we will go to a by-election, that's called. So we'll hold elections just in those areas. And what we do, we leaflet and campaign as the Labour Party, but a number of candidates from different parties will stand, and then the people in that area get a vote, and on polling day they will go and vote for who they want as a candidate, and that's a by-election. That's slightly different from the local elections or the national elections.
Right, okay. And this is a question for myself. When, if you can remember like a specific time, when did your passion for politics start?
Probably with my mother kicking Derek out the living room when I was a kid. It was the local councillor, and my mother Maria and Pat Harvey had done a campaign to get rid of the flats. They were so bad. Yeah. And you know, as a local councillor, he was trying to make deals with them. We'll just get flats for you if you kind of whatever he wanted out of them. And they were saying, no, we want flats for everyone. We're not just doing it for ourselves. So when them flats got knocked out, I suppose I'd lived around a campaign to get flats knocked down for years. I probably didn't really understand it because I was quite young, about 8. And then we got in our first house and the difference that made. I suppose I saw that, you know, with community activism, you could get the change that you needed. I'd gone from a council house, I'd gone from a council flat to a council house, and that made a massive difference to our lives, because front and back garden, I could play out in the front, my mum could see me, she wasn't fearful, you can't play out in the flats, there wasn't room or space for that in the flats. So it was really a big lesson. And then I kind of hated politics for years, I'll be honest, very political background. Everything I'd done, I got threatened with starving children in Africa. I'm not happy about this. There's children starving in Africa, and every day I got told about starving children in Africa, which made me, it was over political in that sense. Going on demonstrations was a bit traumatic as well. I'm not a big fan of demos. Back in the day, people got battered by the police and things like that. And, 8, 9, 10 years of age, being part of the group, shouting, walking down the streets, great. It's a lovely feeling that you're fighting for what you're fighting for. But seeing people hurt and running from the police is not a good experience. And so, those kinds of politics, when I got a bit older, teenage years, I wasn't into it at all. And then I moved the Isle of Man when I was 16. Well, my mother made me go because I wouldn't go to school. And it was nice to not be in any kind of political environment. I was the only black girl on the island. There was a black fella there as well, a Welsh fella. And I didn't receive much racism, although I did receive racism, but it was nothing like the environment of the 80s in Liverpool. So actually, it was nice to just be a teenager and not be political. And then when I come home, started working, I went to a union meeting, and I heard about what was happening to Asian people in the Isle of Dogs in London, getting, dog muck put through the letterbox and stuff like that. And, then I was just, I was sold kinds of thing in terms of helping and supporting other people and being organised through a trade union and campaigning on race issues. And that was when I was about 18, about 20.
I think one thing that I've learned in particular over this Black History Month and last Black History Month, with it being so poignant after the murder of George Floyd, and speaking to my own family, my grandparents were Windrush generation, and that trial and tribulation that they faced pushed them into the public sector too. Grandpa worked on tube and grandma worked as a nurse. And I think these sort of areas of hardship can really make the special people who really want to help others. So thank you for doing that. We do have some questions just popping up on the chat, and I would just like to remind everyone that I will get back to those at the end if that's okay. We'll just keep going with this, and then at the end, if you want to raise your hand or if you've got any questions in chat, we'll address them there. So I was looking at an interview that you did with Harry Doyle, and in that interview, you said that you weren't expect to be in a position, I'm guessing, running for mayor. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, it wasn't on my radar at all. January of this year was blissfully happy, enjoying my life. I think when the 3 women got rejected from the shortlist, I was very worried about having someone imposed on us as a city. And, the city, the local party was my concern of how things were going. It was an absolute mess. And a couple of people stood up to say, well, we'll go with the process. Obviously, a lot of anger. People think I'm a plant from National Party. I had no conversation with National or Regional Party. It was all my own decision. I could have gone first time round, of course, but it's never been on my radar to be Mayor of Liverpool. I pretty much like my own company and do kind of prefer a quiet life. But I could see my city and my party in peril, really, and that's what made me stand up.
And taking that such an incredibly powerful position and standing for what you think is right, how do you personally feel that your first 100 days has gone? A lot of people tend to refer to the first 100 days. I don't think I don't know if they were quite at that point, but so far.
No, I've had my 100 days. I'm coming up to 6 months now. there's much more problems that we've got to clean up. You know, we can't focus on, I imagine, let me put it this way, I imagine if I'd gone for this job where there hadn't been the issues that had gone on, what I could get done. Everything's incredibly slow, and I'm quite impatient, and I've never worked in a public, you know, I've never worked in a local authority, whilst I have worked for the public sector, but things move at a much slower pace than I would get done as a consultant. So the first 100 days I'm happy with. You know, cleaning up a mess is what I've stood up for. I knew what I was getting into. One of the things I'm kind of proud of is implementing our triple lock, which is making sure all our decisions at the local authority are viewed through a lens of environmental impact, social impact, and equality and diversity and inclusion. So what I've been quite proud of is getting my cabinet in place, getting the triple lock in place in our decision, and, you know, saying getting it in place, people actually getting it and understanding it, and sort of people are coming back to me sort of 4 months in and going, oh yeah, that's really good, that makes sure that, you know, it's, if we have a development like Littlewoods or the film depot, it's making sure that those opportunities go to kids in deprived areas, that they have access. It's getting everyone to think through that lens. Okay, we're taking this action, but how does it affect everyone? So I'm really proud of that. But there's a lot of work, more work than I'd want to, more work than I anticipated in just trying to fix problem areas.
Yeah, and I think it would be absolutely silly for anyone to assume that it would be fixed just now, and I think you're doing a brilliant job of addressing the issues and all the issues that. Oh, sorry,
you went a bit in and out then, Elliot. I apologise.
I was just saying, basically saying thank you, and obviously that there's more to come. There's always more progress to be done, and I think it's the mark of a good public figure, someone who's pragmatic about that kind of thing. One thing that obviously affects myself as someone who works with the hospitality industry. Winter's fast approaching, and I would like to hear what your opinion is on how the hospitality sector can or should be supporting the public and patrons going into this sort of time of year. I know there are COVID cases rising, and being sensible and realistic about that situation. You talk about how you want to support, and even in the lead up to the campaign, you've been very open and honest about your support for the hospitality sector. And I was wondering what your opinion is on that.
I haven't been able to move as quickly as I can on the things I want for the hospitality sector. The hospitality sector, or a brunt of COVID that other sectors weren't quite impacted in the same way. We rely heavily on our visitor economy in Liverpool. It's, you know, an economic driver for us. And so our sector is vital to our economic growth as a city. And also what we're proud of, you know, people come to Liverpool, and the thing that stands out most to them is they have a great time and they love the people that they meet. If it wasn't for the hospitality sector, we wouldn't be able to create opportunities for that to happen. So the sector have really been hit badly. We're not quite sure what's ahead of us for this winter. We know there's going to be less national support, little national support. But I also am incredibly proud of how the hospitality sector dealt with COVID and the things that they've done. I actually quite like that period where it was just getting back but not quite, and you could go out for a meal and there was lots of space and it wasn't overcrowded. But obviously that's no way to run a business. And so being back, but actually our figures increased by 30% than the pre-COVID, you know, over the summer. And also what the city done, which was before my time, but remember we had that lockdown last year where we went up to we were level 3 or something, I can't remember now, but we went back down to level 2 because we had an early lockdown. And a couple of weeks the hospitality sector was able to open just before Christmas, and everyone come from outside the area, which made our figures go up again. So a bit of a nightmare in that sense, but the sector was able to make money during that time. That probably saw them through to the next couple of months. So I think there's been some brave decisions being made in Liverpool during COVID with the army testing, you know, the event testing we done, and sort of taken actions to help not just our city but the whole country of understanding the impact of COVID. So working with the hospitality sector more to try and, you know, be the same through what we've got ahead of us. So I have got a meeting plans. I've gone to Market in Liverpool recently, who were organising a meeting with some diverse representatives from the hospitality sector, and I take my job as one to listen and what we can do. We're limited by what we can do. You know, we don't have funds, and we don't have we're affected by what national government give us in terms of funds in that way. But it's so much more than just having resources. You know, we're stakeholders. We work together. We do what we can. So yeah, listening to what is needed and delivering on that is what I see my role as.
Absolutely. And just sort of while I'm talking about some of these more serious points, another point that's been raised to me and is very, I think very important to young people at the moment is in light of the horrific attacks that have been happening across the country to young women, and as a powerful woman in senior government like yourself, what action is being taken, or what are the current sort of plans to support these young women and make sure that these institutes are safe for the public going forward?
So there's a whole set of partners who work together in City Safe, you know, partners at Liverpool City Council, the police, criminal justice agencies, bars, bars and restaurants sign up and meet regularly and talk together about what you can do. I believe there's a new app that's being developed and a campaign around reporting sexual violence and being reporting predatory behaviour, I think is what the term that was used. So City Safe partners trying to do what they can, but I think we need to tackle perpetrators' behaviour in society. I think we're always kind of focused on the victim, what the victim needs to do differently, and we're not really tackling misogyny and, you know, sexual predatory behaviour. And I think we should be tackling that. And you know, as partners who sit around this sort of City Safe table who look at these things, we need to put that into the mix as well, rather than just, it's like we contain the issue rather than deal with the issue. And that's what I'd like to see is more of, is dealing with the issue.
I saw some members of the audience there agreeing with that point, but it is incredibly, I think, especially for the younger population of Liverpool, it's incredibly important, as you said, not to focus on driving victims to self-report and actually addressing the core issue, which is the perpetrators, as you said.
Reporting's important though. Reporting's important, you know, in the whole context of things. But I think we focus at, you know, I've got a criminal justice background in terms of, you know, I'm not a lawyer or anything, and I've never worked in prosecution. But without people reporting hate crime and violence against women, it's hard for us to get resources and to tackle the issue. But when we only focus on changing victims' behaviour, you know, we've got a problem.
Absolutely. And sort of the last question for this segment, and I'm sure you're sick of talking about this, I'm sure you've heard it all the time recently, and you've already made a statement regarding the recent arms fair.
Numerous statements.
Numerous statements, and how you personally feel to that. And I don't think we need to talk about how you said that, as you've made plenty of statements. However, as this, you mentioned about how even at your position, there is only certain things that you can do. There is almost an element of helplessness to certain things, despite your own opinion, despite how you would have done certain things under the previous administration. Is that something you've ever encountered before? Or
so people have expectations. I mean, someone, you know, sent me a link on Twitter and said, you know, Duncan Ferguson deserves an OBE, and I just sent them the link to gov.uk. You know, I don't give out OBEs, and you know, there's lots of things that people expect from me, and you know, massive stuff around transport, the Metro Mayor deals with, you know, there's lots of people think you phone the mayor and they solve things, or, you know, I've got a business idea, I'll go and tell the mayor and they'll give me the money and show me how to do it. You know, it just doesn't work like that. And if I was to fix things, and don't get me wrong, members of my own family have been in touch, that kind of be corruption. If I was helping my cousin with her housing, or I was helping, you know, I don't do those sorts of things. I'm not that kind of mayor. I obviously deal with problems and I solve problems in the city, but it's not about fixing things on behalf of individuals. In terms of the relationship with the Arena Convention Centre, as we own the assets, and that's what's really difficult for people to get their head around, and I completely understand that, because it's not straightforward. And I suppose the crux of the matter is, if I was to take action to stop that, then we could have been sued. And in the current climate, you know, I'm not going to do anything that's going to open us to legal challenge or operate in a way that's not legal. You know, I was not prepared to do that. I'm totally against arms. I am a pacifist, and the people kind of throwing the most mud know that. There was an arms fair in 2014 and 2016. They never said a word. So what's the difference between myself and the previous mayor? You know, I actually had no part in that decision making, and would never make that decision to allow an arms fair in our city. And I've put all the information out that, but people wanted me to act in a way that wasn't legal, and I wasn't prepared to do that.
Thank you for being so open and honest with those questions. They are a little bit tougher. I would like to quickly move on to something a bit lighter and finish up our questions, so we can get these questions from everyone in the chat. So just before we move into the last section, I'm a big fan of Radio 4's Desert Island Discs. I absolutely love it every Sunday when I'm cooking. So just to condense it, what I'd love to hear from you, if you were dropped off on a desert island, can you name one song, one album that you would take with you? And I think the other question is, you can have one special item, any item that you like. You get the complete works of Shakespeare as well.
I probably wouldn't need it. I probably use it to sleep on. Use it as a pillow. Al Green is, you know, it's very hard to pick a favourite song and a favourite artist, but Al Green is one of my favourite artists, and the song How to Mend a Broken Heart is the only song that can ever like move me. So I just definitely Al Green. And I can't really live without toast, but I don't know how to take toast to a desert island.
Well, I think in this circumstance, we can to have a toaster and one loaf of
Don't forget the butter. Don't forget the butter. But yeah.
Have the whole works. I can put it in the package.
If I had toast and Al Green, I'd be a happy woman.
Sounds like a brilliant combination, to be honest. So we'll go into this last section. So this is more talking about the future of what you're doing, also the young people that we're trying to address today, what they can do and how they can get involved. Just quickly, in your opinion, is there enough representation in British politics? And I think we've sort of touched on it a little bit today, but is there enough representation in British politics from underrepresented backgrounds? And if not, what can we do to make that better?
So of about 90 councillors, I think there's 5 or 6 from Black or racial minority backgrounds. No, there isn't enough representation if we just look at our local level. In the region, you know, 5 years ago, there was no women represented around the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority. That's a real lack of diversity. I see now I'm going into meetings with all male meeting, you know, all male dominated meetings. That's just not good, you know, in terms of decision making, of everyone being the same, and not saying all men think the same or anything like that, but there's a real lack of diversity in certain sectors in our city and certain leadership meetings and certain structures, and it's just not acceptable, because I think, you know, I've always wholeheartedly believed in the business case for diversity. You know, the more diverse you are, the better you're thinking, the more resilient you are, the more, you know, you understand people. I just believe in, you know, diversity being, you know, the drive of most things. So I don't think there's enough representation now.
I was going to ask this question, but I think you've possibly already answered it. How have you seen personally representation affect the world around you? So this actually, I suppose we could talk about more in your personal life rather than just your working life.
So how has it affected me seeing a lack of representation? Or
Yeah, or are there any instances where you've had representation, or you've seen, as the title of this this talk today is, have you seen something or someone that's made you or affected you in a way that makes you think that you can do something?
so I have had black leaders in organisations that I've worked, and it kind of, it's not a surprise, is it? If you think, I've had loads of female role models, so I'm quite a strong female woman, a strong female myself, and that I have seen black leadership, and it goes up and down. So probably in the late 90s, there was a lot more black leadership accessible to me. I was in the Transport and General Workers Union. There was a black general secretary. I don't think there's a black general secretary now, but there was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember the exact date. I worked in the Crown Prosecution Service. Badness Scotland was the Attorney General. She was higher than MP. She, in terms of relationship with the CPS. And I'd done a project for, the black leader of our particular field. So I've had access to black leaders and black role models.
So it definitely has affected you then, and it is important, and it's directly something in your life.
Well, I've seen it. When we say we cannot be what we cannot say, I have seen black people in senior positions, and it influences you as a black person.
Yeah. Before I asked you a little bit about what advice you'd give a younger self, if you could give one piece of potential advice to the younger generation now, is there anything that you would sort of like one sort of nugget of advice? What would you pass on?
Take no one's advice. I just don't believe in unsolicited advice. If you want advice, I think you should ask for it. But I think, I don't really think anyone can, people, well, men, I'll be honest, when I was in the campaign, lots of men giving me unsolicited advice for a job that they hadn't done and they would never go for. And I found it bizarre. Women offered support, and, I'm not sort of having a go at male and female traits, but actually, I only give advice if someone asks me for it.
Good. I think that's incredibly important, actually, something that I've never really heard someone say. How can young people from backgrounds other than black or minority, how can they support those that they see being underrepresented?
So being aware of your own privilege. And I think that's a hard one for people to get their head around when they don't feel privileged. But if we go back to my story where, I could easily paint a picture of, living in a poor area, living in, slum housing really, being a single parent family. I've had a very privileged life. I've got, I can't remember the count of auntie and uncles. I know it was 35 cousins, but I'm always going to have someone to put me up for the night. I'm always going to have someone to feed me. I'm always going to have someone to take me in if I've ever got problems, or phone in the middle of the night. I've got that privilege around me. And so whilst, you could describe my life as being disadvantaged, I think it's all important to know that I have had doors open for me. I have had people like me. I've had white men open the doors for me in the past and work with me and tackle racism, as well as, lots of other people around me support me. And so just being aware of your privilege and aware of people who just don't have that privilege as well.
Definitely. I think that's a brilliant perspective to gain from that, actually. You've also mentioned in the past that you don't necessarily see yourself as a role model for men. However, do you think that men should pay closer attention to what a person in your position, such as yourself, can do and what they can draw from strong female leadership?
Well, I say this as a single parent of a boy who's doing incredibly well, and there was lots I could teach him. What I couldn't teach him was how to be a man. So I just think, I take my strength, I take my learning from women, and I understand that. So I think men learn best from men. But that was in the context of sort of being asked a question about black men, perhaps a lack of representation of black men. And it's worried me. It's worried me for a long time. that we, you know, really like to get more black men involved in politics as well as young people, and that representation, because we do seem to have black women a bit more active. But I think men are best placed in encouraging men, and so it's a kind of bit of a vicious circle. So yeah, there's only so much you can learn from the opposite sex, and I think, you know, you learn a lot from your own gender.
Yeah, I think men have to hold themselves responsible for certain issues just as much as anybody does, or any gender identifying person. You describe yourself as an activist. I do too. This is more addressing sort of the younger members of our audience today. But how can someone with a strong interest in enacting change make a difference and get involved really, potentially at let's say 15, 16 years old?
So we need to get better at this, particularly in my party, in the Labour Party. But there is a young members, you know, forum. We have like branches. So there's a black workers, I always call it workers, sorry, black members forum for the Riverside area. There is a youth, Liverpool Labour Youth Party. But I think some of our politics can be a bit toxic, and so if you were a young member entering, I'm not sure you'd have a great experience, and that's what I'd like to change. That's what I'd like to see differently. I think young people inspire me of what they won't accept, what they're angry about, what they want to change. And let's face it, that, you know, it's not our world we're fighting for. It's the kids of today. It's their world tomorrow. So I think, you know, not black people, but generally young people are inspired. The Labour Party with Corbyn, and it was nice to see. It was energising. But the way young black people and white people have come out for BLM since the murder of George Floyd, and, you know, the politics around the environment and climate change, I think young activism is focused on demonstrations, and I think you need to organise after that, and we need to help younger people to organise so that they can then be representative and be part of the political structure.
Brilliant. I'm just going to ask one last question, then we'll go on to these questions that we have in the chat. The title or the topic of today obviously is Be Who You Can't See, and actually we can't see a large chunk of our audience just now. But if someone wants to begin following the path that you started laying out, someone with potentially very similar sort of comparisons, how would they best do that if they wanted to go into potentially a public sector role like you have? What's the best way for them to get into that role?
So, yeah, you know, best way is joining your political party, attending your branch meetings, where that they meet once a month, and you're informed. And then there's the constituency. This is the MP areas. So when I was talking about 5, there's 5 constituency parties, areas across the city. So it's organised from branch to constituency Labour Party, and then, you know, from that you learn a lot of information about the Labour Party locally and nationally. But that's probably your best support mechanism to go for local councillor and finding out about that. It's not a well-paid role. You know, a local councillor gets paid £10,000 a year. You could work every day of the week doing it, and it's just not good really, because it's not enough for a young. You have to work as well if you need to earn a living, and I'd love to be able to change that. You know, it's a national thing. It's not a local thing. But actually, your life's got to allow for you to be able to do this. It's a labour of love. It's not something you get well paid for.
But it's, as you said, a labour of love, and something that a lot of people do out of passion and through enacting change. And obviously people like yourself committing their life to the public, a very important job. I think I can speak for everyone today that you've opened my eyes in particular, and I think a few other young people's eyes, on how hard you work on a day-to-day basis, and how hard a lot of people work to make sure that change is happening, especially in a month like this. So I'd also like to open up another digital round of applause for our lead speaker today, Joanne Anderson. Just in a second, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some questions. I believe some people have used or are using the raise hand function, Joanne, so they'll be able to ask you directly, maybe. I do have some questions here in the chat as well. If you would like to ask a question directly, all you have to do is you have to unmute yourself. I will read out your name, and if you use the raise hand function, I can pick you out now. If you don't feel comfortable speaking, that's fine. I'm more than happy to read the question for you. So just pop them in the chat. I'll just give a little minute for someone. I think I've got Gloria. I apologise if I pronounce this wrong. Gloria Hyatt. If you'd like to ask a question. I think we're just unmuting you now.
Done it.
How you doing? You okay?
Not often muted. Hiya, Joanne.
Hi, Glenn.
Always interesting to hear from you, despite knowing quite a bit about you already. I always get a few more snippets that I didn't know. So, as usual, inspired by you. I actually wrote my question in the chat, and then I thought, nah, that's not very fair. Someone else, I should ask it. So, what I wanted to know is, you know, you're Liverpool's first black mayor. There's a lot of pressure on you there, because you're the first black mayor. So what I want to know really is, how do you manage that expectation that must come from some quarters, that you should be doing things for the black community?
So I've got a track record, haven't I, of helping the black community going back 30 years. So in terms of me coming into this role, I've always done it. It won't be a new thing. So I think in terms of expectations, people have a lot of expectations on me time more than anything. It's not that people are asking me for things, they're asking me to come and see them. And, you know, there's just so many requests across the city for me to visit people and just come and see what they're doing. That's the bit I find the hardest to say no to, because it's the simplest of things, and I just don't have enough time in the day. So I find it really difficult. I'm not sure I am managing expectations. I think I'm just always letting someone down somewhere, because if I prioritize something else and I'm not going to your particular thing, that person will feel let down, and I don't feel good about that. That feels much more difficult. I think when people are asking for things and support, I think there's lots of organisations I can push them to. So, for example, social businesses, I point them to Kindred. If someone wants business support, then, you know, we've got business support in the city, the women's organisation, what you're doing, Gloria, with Black Business. I think I know quite a lot about the city and what people are doing, so I'm able to make referrals to people for that. Obviously, the office deals with casework that I just don't see, so people will write in about bins and I don't really see that. But yeah, the request to meet people is the most difficult one, especially Black History Month. I've had requests from all around the country, and I've had requests, you know, once I got elected in May, that I've had to say, look, I'll have to come back to your Black History Month. But I just want to, while you're on, Gloria, Gloria worked on my campaign. We hadn't seen each other for years, really. But Gloria worked on my campaign, and that's how I got in. You know, people grafting. Who I think Gloria might have joined the Labour Party the day she started supporting the campaign. But Gloria grafted for me. She phoned. She was demon on the phone banks, and that's actually when you asked me the question before about how you get elected. I got elected through family and friends and some Labour Party members just giving up 6 weeks of their life and just helping me get elected, phoning people and delivering leaflets and doing all they could. And so I was very inspired by Gloria for putting in that effort to, you know, she was a part of making it happen.
Amazing question. Thank you, Gloria.
Thanks for that, Joanne.
I was looking for you then, I couldn't see it on the screen.
So we actually have another question here as well from Michelle Hopwood. Michelle, if you'd like to ask the question yourself, you're more than welcome to. If you just do that raise your hand feature. If not, I'll give you a moment. And I'll ask it myself for you. Jean, we'll come to you in a second. I think I'll ask this question for Michelle. Michelle says, I have recently become a mature student in the true sense of the word, studying business management as a first-year undergraduate. How pivotal were Joanne's studies as a mature student in achieving her role now? And what advice would you give to a woman progressing into a graduate role after university?
So I left school with no qualifications, and I'd done some GCSEs when I was 18, maths, English and accounts, because you needed 3 to get a job. So I knew I needed that to get a better paid job. I didn't actually finish my degree till I was 30. I took it very slowly. I think what my degree gave me was the ability to write a report and, you know, your dissertation, but actually that's really important in terms of confidence. And so I've always enjoyed learning in the workplace, but especially compared to learning in school, I didn't enjoy that experience at all. So having a degree gave me more confidence about going for jobs, and it just backed up my experience. You know, not only was I experienced, but I was qualified, and that I could put my mind to something and write a report. I've just had to put my masters on hold, but I absolutely loved it, and I done a scale up masters in business studies, and as a consultant it's very difficult to scale up. You're a one-person band, you just get on with stuff, but actually the minute I started that degree, and I've only done 6 months worth, I scaled my business up immediately. So it just took me up another notch. And yeah, I'm very passionate. I can't wait to go back to it, to be honest. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's a far cry from my teacher's experience of me in school. But I actually think it gives you confidence. So no one can take that away from you when you do something intrinsically good for yourself. It's not like materialistic thing. It's not like a new handbag or earrings or something that's nice and shiny. Working hard and achieving something gives you confidence that absolutely no one can take away from you.
I hope that answers that for you, Michelle. We have another hand raised here with Jean Barrett. We should just bring you up now on the screen. There you go.
Hi, Jean.
You should be unmuted in a moment. There you go.
Hi, Joanne. I was just wondering what to do for your downtime. What you do for self-care, how to switch off.
I was just saying, my guilty pleasure's TikTok. I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? That the minute City thrills through a bit of TikTok before she goes to bed, and I loved TikTok during COVID. Just people putting the ridiculousness out there. I think they've damaged it now by making it too long. Just the few the minute or two it used to be. But actually, I love staying in and a good box set and talking with my mates. And you know, as I say, I would try and thought of something a lot more cleverer when I was younger. Like I like to read history, or I like to go to art galleries, but I don't. I like, you know, I like a nice good box set and completely switching off.
Sometimes that's the best part of being mindful and just having that time for yourself. Is there mechanisms though within local authority, or with like who's above you to help you?
So I don't have anyone above me to help me. The buck stops with me. But I'm an ambivert, so I am extremely extrovert and I'm comfortable being in a crowd, but I'm also can be quite introvert. So I actually kind of renew by being alone and being by myself and just having my own company. And I actually get quite stressed if I don't get enough of that. So that's the way I chill out. With other people, you know, they might go out to a party or go and drink with their mates and stuff. I actually re-energise by being alone.
Okay. I get it.
Thank you very much for your question. And actually, I think that's something that's not talked about as much, or as much as it should be anyway. It's about looking after yourself, no matter what position you're in.
Yeah.
We have another hand raised here from James Hiley. So we should bring you up. There you go. And it should be unmuted just now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, James.
Hello, James, obviously, Liverpool Riverside Labour member. Lovely to meet you. I was just wondering, is there anything that we can do as people, but also maybe the council itself? Granted, you mentioned about the kind of stress of budgets from the national level, but is there anything that we can be doing to kind of improve the kind of standing of arts education charities in our society? For example, as I've said in the chat, kind of maybe bigger budgets to help renovate maybe abandoned buildings in Liverpool to create kind of like art co-ops?
I'd love to. I would absolutely love to. But in terms of the way, and I appreciate this a bit more than I did before I was mayor, in terms of how central government works and how they give us money, they give us money for projects and things. They don't give us a budget and we decide what to do with it. So we get money funding that can do a particular service. and that money's dwindled over the years. But as you know, we've got other problems of why we've got less money this year, and a £30 million budget gap that we've managed to come up with proposals for a balanced budget, but there's no spare cash lying around. One of the things I'm really passionate about is I think communities have got the ability to take action and take responsibility for their own communities. So whilst we don't have money to help a community organisation, for example, redo an old building, we should be creating the support structures that help community organisations go for funding and do it for themselves. And that's what I'd like to really, by the end of my term, I would have liked to have been able to be better at that at Liverpool City Council, that we genuinely create the support systems that make communities make decisions for themselves and be able to draw down resources themselves. And that's what I mean about home baked and, you know, community businesses. Even WOW as a non-profit organisation, you know, community arts organisations previously, there was budgets for community development in Liverpool, probably thousands and thousands, but it's just over the years just dwindled and gone. But I think this is where you see communities taking action for themselves. And Liverpool, as a local authority, perhaps has got intervened in the past and not been of any great help in that scenario. I think we need to genuinely support organisations, community organisations particularly, to take action for themselves. But yeah, you know, we had to Stop the Rock campaign in Liverpool a few years ago. I think, and this might be my very simplistic, pragmatic point of view, but I think we just need to focus on one building at a time and get it done. So, you know, the Irish Centre is kind of number one for me. I'd really like us to do, but the amount of resource that's needed is massive. And if the community don't take it on, there's no one to take it on.
Amazing. James, I hope that answered that question for you.
Yeah,
I think that's it in the way of questions. Again, I'll just give it another moment just in case there's one last question to come in. Just while we wait, again, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Joanne on behalf of all of us, and personally as well. It's been lovely chatting to you and get to know you a little bit better. And I hope we can speak again soon. Thank you again to WOW as well for setting up this conversation and all the brilliant work they're doing. I think I'm going to hand back to, we have one more. In a moment, I'll hand back to Madeline, just after we've heard from Linda Wall about what WOW are going to continue doing for the rest of their season.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Joanne. I'm Secretary of Wallasey Labour Party, and hopefully we'll get you at some point in the future coming and talking to one of our meetings. It's interesting to hear you talking about devolving powers to communities, and I was just wondering, you know, we've got an elected mayor in Liverpool. Would you like to see more power being devolved to the city region and to the local region generally, and if you could speak to the government about what powers and for extra democracy you would like to see go into the local region, what would you say to them?
So if they were listening, that's the first port of call. But I mean, I'm ashamed to say this, devolved authority excites me. I think it's amazing to be able to make our decisions locally. It's just a bit of a con. It's not quite, we get to make our decisions. The national government, again, give us money and tell us what we can spend it on. And we get to choose the projects rather than giving us a single budget. And we say, actually, this is our way of making decisions that affect our region. So it's a step in the right direction, the system that we've got in place now. We do get to make decisions about what we spend money on certain things. So, for example, that's why you might see money for cycle lanes, but we haven't got money for parks, or that's why you might see money for jobs in tech, but there's no money for jobs in construction. We don't get to decide as much as we could, but I'm truly excited by the idea of having a devolved authority, that we do get more powers from Whitehall. but also the kinds of trick that's happening with, you know, there's always a trick with the Tories. I hate to be party political, but there's always a trick, is that instead of, the promise was about devolved authorities, this is the Metro Mayor, Steve Rotherham, who's Mayor of the City region, is that instead of just taking powers from Whitehall, they're starting to take powers from local authorities to give it to the region. And that's not the purpose. The purpose is to take decisions from Whitehall and happen to the region. So yeah, I am a fan of devolution. I think, you know, there needs to, you know, the more powers that we have no powers over health, for example, but it kind of relies heavily on us working together as a region as well. And we do currently, which is great.
Once again, I hope that answered that for you, Linda. And yeah, as I was saying before, I'm going to hand back to Madeline now to wrap up today. I think we're running over slightly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elliot. Really lovely to be in a safe pair of hands. Thank you very much.
Well, I just want to say a huge thanks to both of you. Elliot, you conducted that conversation beautifully. Hope you'll come back and do it again at Writing on the Wall. And Joe, we are really proud that you've come to us, because, you know, listen to the day you've got, a 12-hour day, meetings in, and I can't imagine how many requests you've had to do Black History Month. So we are totally honoured at Writing on the Wall that you chose to do your Black History Month event with us. So, and the conversation, I mean, I've known you for years, but even I found out stuff there. Toast, that's what you want to take on your desert island. She's easily pleased.
I care more about toast than I do most things, I'll be honest.
She's easily pleased, Mare. And that's what I love about it. But anyway, thank you to everybody in the Zoom room. There's lots of old friends, but there's also lots of new faces, new names, and it's great to see you all. Just I'll flag up, Sunday we're having a commemoration day for during the 40th anniversary of the 1981 uprisings, not just in Liverpool, but the national events. And we've got Layla Hassan, or Layla Howe, as she's also known, coming along from London. We've got guests from Manchester, we've got guests from Bristol, all of the cities where uprisings occurred. We've got drumming from Katoomba, we've got photography with Leroy Cooper, and there's even stuff for the kids to do, so nobody feels like they should be excluded from that event. Check out our residency at the Tate. Check out our residency and online residency in our writers block with Ashley Nugent, all on our WOW website. The link is all in the chat. You will get an email following this event asking you what you think about our event tonight. And it really does. We're not just ticking boxes. It matters to us what you think about our events, and it helps us to shape events in the future. So finally, I'll just say another huge thank you to Elliot and Joanne. Thank you to our staff who've been taking this event in the background tonight. And thank you all for joining us this evening. And I hope to see you again at a WOW event very soon, if not Sunday.
Thank you for that. Really, really heartwarming that you've come to hear me talk. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.